Most people don't struggle because they don't start. They struggle because they never finish. I want you to think back to the last time you were excited about something. Maybe it was a new goal, a big dream, a plan that lit a fire inside you. You had energy, you had clarity, you started. And then it faded. Life happened, motivation evaporated, and before you even realized it, that thing, whatever it was, got pushed aside, buried under distractions, or worse, quietly abandoned. That's the real pain, isn't it? It's not that we don't know what we want, it's that we can't seem to follow through. In this video, I'm going to teach you something most people will never learn: how to rewire your brain to become a finisher. Because your success will never be measured by how many things you start. It will be measured by what you finish, and if you're honest with yourself, you know this is the missing link. You've read the books, watched the videos, set the goals, but deep down, something's still blocking you from following through consistently. That's what we're going to fix starting today. Becoming a finisher is not about motivation, it's about identity. And right now, your brain is wired to chase dopamine from new beginnings instead of chasing the deeper reward of completion. You've been programmed probably for years to associate, starting with excitement and finishing with fatigue, boredom, or fear. That's not your fault. It's biology. But it is your responsibility to change it. Let me be very clear. You can absolutely rewire your mind to follow through on anything you start, whether it's building a business, transforming your health, writing a book, or mastering a skill. It's possible. But it begins with understanding that your current habits, routines, and mental triggers are not aligned with the psychology of finishers. And without rewiring those inner mechanics, no amount of motivation will save you. You've probably asked yourself, why do I always lose steam halfway through? Or, why do I procrastinate even when I know what needs to be done? These aren't questions of laziness. They're signs that your internal operating system is misaligned with your external goals. You want to achieve something, but your subconscious mind is still running old programs that tell you, this is too hard, this won't work, or you'll fail, so why bother? Those thoughts are not your truth. They're your conditioning. And the moment you stop identifying with them, you take back control. In just a few minutes, I'll show you the exact process to begin rewiring those thoughts-using principles I've taught to CEOs, athletes, and entrepreneurs all over the world. You'll learn how to shift your identity, install the habits of high performers, and finally feel the power of completing what you start. Because the moment you become a finisher, your life changes. Your confidence returns. Your income increases. Your self-respect multiplies. And most of all, you stop carrying the invisible weight of unfinished dreams. You deserve that freedom. So if you're ready to finally break the cycle, stay with me. When I say that most people are addicted to starting but allergic to finishing, I'm not exaggerating. And here's why that matters. Unfinished tasks are not neutral. They don't just sit there quietly. They infect your confidence. They erode your self-belief. Every time you leave something incomplete, your subconscious registers it as a micro-failure. It's like putting a silent vote in the ballot box that says, I'm the kind of person who doesn't follow through. And over time, those votes add up. You begin to hesitate more, doubt more. You start to say things like, maybe I'm just not cut out for this, or I never seem to stick with anything. And the worst part is, you believe it. Not because it's true, but because repetition is how beliefs are formed. You've repeated the habit of stopping, so your brain wires itself to expect it. That becomes your mental default. But let me tell you something powerful. Habits are not destiny. They're decisions repeated. So how do we change it? Step one is brutal honesty. You must acknowledge that your brain is currently wired for short-term reward. That means it will seek the dopamine of new ideas, distractions, entertainment, and shallow wins. It avoids discomfort, ambiguity, and delayed gratification, the exact ingredients of finishing. You don't finish because your brain is trying to protect you from the emotional friction of the process. But here's the secret nobody teaches you. You can train your brain to associate pleasure with progress, not just novelty. You can teach it to crave closure, to see each task completed as a personal victory. And when you start stacking wins, no matter how small, you begin forming a new identity. You stop saying, I'm a procrastinator, and start saying, I finish what I start. Let me give you a practical technique right now. I call it micro-finishing. Instead of trying to finish the entire project, task, or goal all at once, you focus solely on finishing the next action. That's it. You train your brain to complete, not to attempt. You turn overwhelm into clarity. You don't ask, what's everything I need to do? You ask, what's the next thing I need to finish? And then you do it fully, completely, with intention. When that's done, you do the next. And the next, before long, you've trained your mind to expect resolution, not resistance. The second tool is what I call visible progress. This means you track what you've completed, not just what you plan to do. Most people have endless to-do lists, but no done lists. So at the end of the day, all they see is what they didn't accomplish. That reinforces a sense of failure. Instead, I want you to start tracking your completions. Whether it's a whiteboard, a journal, or a digital tracker, make your progress visible. Your brain responds to closure. It rewards finished loops. And the more you see those finished loops, the more your identity shifts from starter to closer. Now let's talk about emotional resistance, because that's what stops most people, not logistics. It's not the lack of time or resources. It's the discomfort of sticking with something when it stops being exciting. That's when most people quit. The first 20% feels fun. The next 60% feels hard, confusing, repetitive, or boring. And that final 20%, that's where the gold is. That's where most people give up, and where the finisher keeps going. To push through that middle, you need something stronger than motivation. You need commitment. Motivation is fleeting. It's based on feelings. Commitment is a decision you make once, and then honor regardless of emotion. You don't ask yourself, do I feel like it? You remind yourself, this is who I am. And that, right there, is the turning point. When finishing becomes part of your identity, that's the key we'll keep reinforcing throughout this video. Because once it becomes who you are, it's no longer hard, it's automatic. Now let's go deeper. In the next section, I'll show you exactly how to hardwire that identity into your mind using repetition, environment, and accountability. Because rewiring your brain isn't theory, it's practice. And it begins now. There's a powerful truth I want you to carry with you. Identity drives behavior. You always act in alignment with who you believe you are. If deep down you see yourself as someone who always gives up, gets distracted, or can't finish, then even with the best tools in the world, you'll still find a way to self-sabotage. But if you shift that identity even slightly, everything begins to change. So how do you actually do that? The first step is language. Words are the software of the brain. And most people don't even realize they've been running negative self-talk loops for years. Phrases like, I never finish anything, I'm a perfectionist, or I just get bored easily. These aren't descriptions, they're programs. They are commands to your subconscious mind, and your subconscious obeys. From this moment forward, I want you to remove those phrases from your vocabulary. Replace them with new ones that reflect the identity you want to build. I'm the kind of person who always follows through. I finish what I start no matter how I feel. I value completion more than perfection. I thrive on progress, not procrastination. Say these things out loud if you have to. Write them. Repeat them. At first they'll feel strange, maybe even untrue. But remember, you're not affirming the past. You're programming the future. The second step is environment. Most people try to change themselves while staying in the same environment that created the problem. It's like trying to dry off while standing in the rain. You must begin shaping an environment that supports the identity of a finisher. That could mean organizing your workspace so that distractions are harder to access. It might mean deleting apps. It might mean changing the people you spend the most time with. It might be as simple as moving your phone across the room when you work. Small changes, big difference. Remember this, environment always wins. If your environment encourages half-finished work, if your tools are scattered, if your notifications are endless, your willpower doesn't stand a chance. But if your environment is built for clarity, focus, and follow-through, you begin winning by default. Now, let's talk about accountability. Finishing is not just a personal habit, it's a system. And one of the fastest ways to accelerate your progress is by introducing consequence. Tell someone what you're going to do. Set a deadline. Share your progress publicly. Human beings will often break promises to themselves, but they'll go to great lengths not to look like a liar in front of others. So use it to your advantage. Join a mastermind. Hire a coach. Tell a friend. Create leverage until finishing becomes your natural state, not your occasional win. And here's another technique that's changed lives. Create a done list ritual at the end of each day. Don't just plan your to-dos. Celebrate your completions. Every night, before you go to bed, write down the things you finished. They can be small, doesn't matter. The act of noticing and logging your completions trains your brain to value finishing over perfection. You stop obsessing over what's left to do and start building confidence from what you did do. This practice is subtle but powerful because it gives your subconscious something it desperately craves: closure. And closure feeds momentum. There's one last point I need you to internalize in this section. You are always reinforcing a pattern. Every time you finish something, even something small, you strengthen the neural pathways of completion. It becomes easier the next time. You're not just doing the task, you're building the identity behind the task. This is how high performers think. They don't ask, do I feel motivated? They ask, what kind of person am I becoming by doing this right now? You're not training for a single outcome. You're becoming someone who finishes. And that changes everything. In the next block, I'll show you exactly how to handle those inevitable moments when you want to quit, because they'll come. But when you expect them and you're ready for them, you win. Let's keep going. You're on the path now. If you've ever set a goal, started with passion, and found yourself completely stuck halfway through, you're not alone. That's not a flaw in you. It's not laziness. It's the natural resistance every ambitious person faces. I've seen it in entrepreneurs, athletes, executives, and students. I've felt it myself. The excitement fades. The obstacles appear. The self-talk turns toxic. That's when most people quit. But that's also where transformation lives. You need to know this. What you feel in those moments is not a signal to stop, it's a signal to push forward. There's a concept I call the dip. It's the painful middle. The start is exciting, the end is rewarding. But the middle, that's where progress is invisible and self-doubt is loud. The dip is the test, and you must expect it, anticipate it, plan for it. Because when it arrives, and it will, you'll already have the tools to beat it. Here's how. First, separate emotion from execution. When you're tired, frustrated, or overwhelmed, it's easy to let feelings take over the steering wheel. You say things like, this is too hard, or I'm not cut out for this. But the truth is, feelings are not facts. They're just data. And data can be observed, not obeyed. Instead of reacting emotionally, practice acknowledging your state without being ruled by it. Say to yourself, I'm feeling resistance right now. That's okay. It doesn't change what I need to do. This tiny pause creates power. It creates space. It allows you to choose action over avoidance. Second, break your momentum down into micro wins. When the finish line feels far away, shrink the goal. You don't need to climb the whole mountain today. You just need to take one more step. Open the document, send the email, make the call. Write 50 words. One movement leads to the next. Action defeats stagnation. Never underestimate the power of a 10-minute sprint. Set a timer, start the task, and tell yourself you only need to show up for 10 minutes. What happens? You bypass the internal resistance. And more often than not, you keep going. You finish more in that sprint than you would in hours of hesitation. Third, implement what I call the second wind ritual. This is a personal discipline I've used for decades. Anytime I hit a wall, mentally, physically, emotionally, I give myself a reset. I step outside, breathe deeply, drink water, stretch, review my goals, and repeat this phrase out loud. I am built to finish. I was born to finish. It sounds simple, maybe even silly, but it works. Because it interrupts the loop of fatigue and replaces it with clarity and intention. You don't need to feel like a machine, but you do need tools to reset when the engine starts stalling. Fourth, get ruthless about energy leaks. A big reason why people don't finish what they start is because their energy is being drained in 1,000 invisible ways. Toxic conversations, excessive notifications, overcommitment, cluttered environments, lack of sleep, poor food, endless multitasking. Every unfinished task becomes a mental tab quietly running in the background, eating up bandwidth. You want to become a finisher? You must protect your mental RAM like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. Simplify, say no more often, close the tabs, delegate what you can, and most of all, stop trying to do everything finish what matters. Let me say that again. Finish what matters. Don't chase volume. Chase completion. A few meaningful completions are more powerful than 100 shallow starts. Now let's address a mindset that will save you years of frustration. You don't need to feel ready to finish. You just need to be willing. Most people wait for motivation to show up before they act. High performers act first and let motivation catch up later. You don't have to feel like finishing to finish. You just have to decide to move, to commit, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. Because that's where your identity is forged, in those quiet, difficult moments when no one is watching and you still choose to move forward. In the next block, I'll give you the long-term strategy how to rewire your default operating system so that finishing becomes not just a choice, but a habit, a reflex, a part of who you are, not something you occasionally do. We're just getting started. If you want to be someone who finishes no matter what, you have to do more than just push through moments of resistance. You have to build an internal system that makes finishing inevitable. That means rewiring your brain, at the core changing how you think, how you respond, and how you define yourself. This isn't something you do once. It's something you do daily until it becomes automatic. Let's start with this truth. You become what you repeat. The habits you practice, the thoughts you rehearse, the standards you uphold, these are the building blocks of your identity. If you want to become a finisher, you need rituals that reinforce that identity, not just when things feel good, but especially when they don't. One of the most powerful habits I've ever adopted and taught countless others is the practice of completion conditioning. It's simple in theory, but life-changing in practice. Every single day, you choose one task, just one that you must finish no matter what. Doesn't matter if it's big or small. What matters is that you build the mental muscle of crossing the finish line daily. It could be completing a chapter, closing a sale, cleaning out a folder, sending the follow-up, making a decision. What you're doing here is training your brain to expect closure, to reward yourself for finishing, to normalize results instead of just effort. And the more you condition completion, the less power procrastination holds over you. Another long-term strategy, create what I call finish lines everywhere. Most people only feel satisfaction when they complete massive goals. But that creates too much distance between effort and reward. Instead, install small finish lines throughout your day, micro milestones, checkpoints, clear endpoints. When you finish a segment of a task, celebrate it. That celebration doesn't need to be loud. It can be a moment of acknowledgement, a breath, a yes, I did it. These moments, repeated over time, rewire your brain to crave progress. You begin to associate action with reward, not just relief. Let's also talk about visual reinforcement. Finishers don't just rely on discipline, they build environments that remind them who they are. That means creating visual cues that keep you anchored in your identity. Post your goals on your wall. Keep a finished list where you can see it. Use a physical calendar and mark off the days you completed your non-negotiable task. Why does this work? Because your brain needs feedback. It needs to see that you're changing. And the more you feed it proof, the faster it rewires. Now let's go deeper. The biggest long-term shift is this. Stop glorifying intensity and start worshiping consistency. Most people wait for the perfect surge of motivation to finally act. They binge on progress for a day or two and then crash for a week. That's not how finishers work. Finishers trade the highs for the habit. They choose consistency over chaos. They don't rely on emotion, they rely on structure. They understand that greatness isn't built in outbursts. It's built in the quiet, daily follow-through that no one sees. You don't need to run a marathon every day, but you do need to take one step every day. Let me give you a mantra that will change your relationship with discipline. Small finishes build big momentum. You don't need to write a book today. You just need to write a page. You don't need to launch the business tonight. You just need to make one move. Over time, these small finishes compound. They build trust with yourself. And that trust, that's the fuel of finishers. Because once you believe in your own consistency, nothing can stop you. Here's something else I'll leave you with in this section. You don't need a perfect plan. You need relentless completion. Perfect plans are often just procrastination in disguise. Finishers don't wait for everything to be clear. They act, adjust, and act again. That's how they move faster. That's how they build resilience. And that's how they finish. In the final block, I'll show you how to turn this new mindset into a personal Kodea belief system, so strong that quitting isn't even an option anymore. You'll become someone who finishes because it's simply who you are. Let's bring it home. There's a moment in every transformation where something inside you clicks. You stop looking for motivation. You stop blaming your environment. You stop asking for permission. And you simply decide, that moment is now, because if you've come this far, it means something in you is tired of leaving things half finished. You've felt the weight of starting and stopping. You've lived with the frustration of good intentions and poor execution. You've seen the gap between who you could be and who you've been settling to be. That's not weakness, that's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of mastery. Let's be real. The world doesn't reward starters. It rewards finishers. Anyone can be excited in the beginning. That takes no courage, no discipline. But the one who finishes, that person is rare, respected, remembered. Because finishers build things. They lead movements. They write the books. They sign the deals. They live with clarity. They walk with confidence. And most importantly, they sleep with peace. Why? Because their life isn't filled with a graveyard of abandoned dreams. It's filled with completions, results, growth. I want that for you. Not just because it feels good, but because it will change everything. Your income, your health, your relationships, your self-respect, your legacy. But here's the truth. It only happens if you choose to stop flirting with potential and start obsessing over completion. Let me give you a final principle I live by. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you start ignoring small tasks, you'll start excusing big ones. If you leave things incomplete at home, you'll carry that same energy into your business. If you tell yourself, I'll do it tomorrow, eventually tomorrow becomes your identity. And tomorrow never shows up. But when you start finishing even small things, you send a different message to your brain. I finish. That's who I am now. That energy compounds. That belief expands. And before long, it's not just one finished task. It's a finished project, a completed vision, a new standard. So here's your challenge. Starting today, finish something. Anything. Make the call. Write the page. Do the workout. Clean the space. Pay the bill. Whatever it is, don't leave it for later. Finish it, and then do the next, and the next. Stack those wins, build the proof, cement the identity, Because that's what this entire process is about, becoming the person who always follows through. And once that's who you are, success stops being a question. It becomes a pattern. No more starting and stopping. No more half-done projects. No more someday. From now on, you finish. Not because it's easy, not because it's fast, but because that's who you are now. A closer, a builder, a finisher. Let the world watch. You're not leaving things undone anymore. There's a moment in every transformation where something inside you clicks. You stop looking for motivation. You stop blaming your environment. You stop asking for permission. And you simply decide, that moment is now, because if you've come this far, it means something in you is tired of leaving things half finished. You've felt the weight of starting and stopping. You've lived with the frustration of good intentions and poor execution. You've seen the gap between who you could be and who you've been settling to be. That's not weakness, that's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of mastery. Let's be real. The world doesn't reward starters. It rewards finishers. Anyone can be excited in the beginning. That takes no courage, no discipline. But the one who finishes, that person is rare, respected, remembered. Because finishers build things. They lead movements. They write the books. They sign the deals. They live with clarity. They walk with confidence. And most importantly, they sleep with peace. Why? Because their life isn't filled with a graveyard of abandoned dreams. It's filled with completions, results, growth. I want that for you. Not just because it feels good, but because it will change everything. Your income, your health, your relationships, your self-respect, your legacy. But here's the truth. It only happens if you choose to stop flirting with potential and start obsessing over completion. Let me give you a final principle I live by. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you start ignoring small tasks, you'll start excusing big ones. If you leave things incomplete at home, you'll carry that same energy into your business. If you tell yourself, I'll do it tomorrow, eventually tomorrow becomes your identity, and tomorrow never shows up. But when you start finishing even small things, you send a different message to your brain. I finish. That's who I am now. That energy compounds, that belief expands, and before long, it's not just one finished task. It's a finished project, a completed vision, a new standard. So here's your challenge. Starting today, finish something, anything. Make the call, write the page, do the workout, clean the space, pay the bill. Whatever it is, don't leave it for later. Finish it. And then do the next and the next. Stack those wins, build the proof, cement the identity, because that's what this entire process is about, becoming the person who always follows through. And once that's who you are, success stops being a question. It becomes a pattern. No more starting and stopping. No more half-done projects. No more someday. From now on, you finish. Not because it's easy, not because it's fast, but because that's who you are now. A closer, a builder, a finisher. Let the world watch. You're not leaving things undone anymore. There's a moment in every transformation where something inside you clicks. You stop looking for motivation, you stop blaming your environment, you stop asking for permission, and you simply decide, that moment is now. Because if you've come this far, it means something in you is tired of leaving things half-finished. You've felt the weight of starting and stopping. You've lived with the frustration of good intentions and poor execution. You've seen the gap between who you could be and who you've been settling to be. That's not weakness, that's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of mastery. Let's be real. The world doesn't reward starters. It rewards finishers. Anyone can be excited in the beginning. That takes no courage, no discipline. But the one who finishes, that person is rare, respected, remembered, because finishers build things. They lead movements, they write the books, they sign the deals, they live with clarity, they walk with confidence, and most importantly, they sleep with peace. Why? Because their life isn't filled with a graveyard of abandoned dreams, it's filled with completions, results, growth. I want that for you. Not just because it feels good, but because it will change everything. Your income, your health, your relationships, your self-respect, your legacy. But here's the truth. It only happens if you choose to stop flirting with potential and start obsessing over completion. Let me give you a final principle I live by. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you start ignoring small tasks, you'll start excusing big ones. If you leave things incomplete at home, you'll carry that same energy into your business. If you tell yourself, I'll do it tomorrow, eventually tomorrow becomes your identity. And tomorrow never shows up. But when you start finishing even small things, you send a different message to your brain. I finish. That's who I am now. That energy compounds. That belief expands. And before long, it's not just one finished task. It's a finished project, a completed vision, a new standard. So here's your challenge. Starting today, finish something. Anything. Make the call. Write the page. Do the workout. Clean the space. Pay the bill. Whatever it is. Don't leave it for later. Finish it, and then do the next and the next. Stack those wins. Build the proof. Cement the identity. Because that's what this entire process is about, becoming the person who always follows through. And once that's who you are, success stops being a question. It becomes a pattern. No more starting and stopping, no more half-done projects, no more someday. From now on, you finish. Not because it's easy, not because it's fast, but because that's who you are now, a closer, a builder, a finisher. Let the world watch. You're not leaving things undone anymore.